YouTube, what the crap's going on? HeirofCarthage here. How are you all doing today? I hope you're having a good Saturday so far. I mean, it is possible that by the time this uploads, it'll still be Friday for some of you, but for most of you, it should be Saturday. Especially for those of you who are in Australia and watching this. I mean, unless it gets like a whole, okay, I'll quit thinking about it. There's way too many time zones involved. Just know that I'm glad to have you here. I want to finish up the discussion I started a long time ago on Beastmen. And I didn't really get to finish it because they had an update came out in the middle of the game, and honestly it didn't affect the Beastmen a whole lot. So I've been spending a lot of time trying to understand what the updates actually did. So that's why I haven't finished the discussion on these guys yet. But yeah, so in the last update, very little of significant interest happened to the Beastmen other than Warhounds dropping in price some. And there were maybe a couple other small changes, but nothing that's going to have changed these guys wildly. So where do these guys stand as a faction compared to others? Let me give you my take on this game in its current state, and then I will, give you my take on the Beastmen and where they fit into that. So in patch 4, I would say that Warhammer seems to me, at least, to be more balanced in multiplayer than it ever has been since its release. And what I mean by that is that in capable hands, pretty much every faction can be dangerous. Again, that's in capable hands. Some factions are easier for certain types of player to use and certain skill levels of players to use. I wouldn't say the Beastmen are probably a good beginner faction, but I think that for someone who has some experience, they can use the Beastmen to pretty good effect. And I'll talk a little bit about that. I would still say that the game is probably split between Tier 1 factions and then everything else kind of in a Tier 2 faction. And what I mean by that is that if you took two players of equal skill, and this is an impossible scenario, but let's just assume that all things are exactly equal, there's probably people at that equal skill level who would be better with either one, the Empire, the Greenskins, or the Vampires. I would say those are kind of like a Tier 1 or top tier faction. And Beastmen, Bretonia, and of course Clan Angren and Crooked Mood and Bloody Hand, those all wrap up into the original. The Dwarfs, the Greenskins, Warriors of Chaos, and Beastmen, and like I said, Bretonia, those are going to be your Tier 2 factions. And when I say Tier 2, I mean that it's going to take a little bit more skill. They don't have quite as many tools to be used to their advantage as the other first three that I named, which again was Empire, Vampires, and Greenskins. And Greenskins, in my opinion, moved into that top tier with this patch. They were always pretty darn good, but I would say that Vampires and Empire definitely held an edge over them, but I think Greenskins really kind of made it there with the Regiment of Renown, the addition of Wurzag, and a bunch of the other options that got opened up. So, Beastmen. I would say that they're probably potentially on an equivalent level with any other faction in Tier 2, and used craftily can certainly find success against the Tier 1 factions, again, depending on how well you're able to use them. So that's kind of my take on the Beastmen. Let's talk about what makes the Beastmen unique, what their strengths are, and what their weaknesses are. Before I forget it, I'm going to go ahead and chime in with the weakness. The weakness is that the Beastmen generally lack armor. Generally. Not in total, but as a rule of thumb, their faction lacks armor. And you can see that here in all these infantry. The only one that has any armor, and it's pretty good armor, is the Bestigor. And as we come down here, again, like the Centaurs, almost no armor. Most of the monsters, all of the monsters, no armor. Cygor, not really much armor. Of course, they're lords. Malagor has none. Of course, he's a wizard. Wizards typically don't. Khazrak has some armor, and so does the Beastlords. So again, very few, and of course, Gorbul does too. And it's probably just from like their skin or something anyway. They don't wear like a ton of armor, it doesn't look like. So the Beastmen are going to be a low armor faction. So they're going to be a little bit vulnerable to skirmish fire. They're going to be vulnerable to factions who have units that excel at damaging, like doing high damage to low armor targets. So anybody who's got units like that can potentially do well against Beastmen infantry for the most part. Again, Bestigor, now, and let's just talk about their infantry. We'll talk about heroes and lords in a minute, but on their infantry category, they've got tools. They have spears, so there's an anti-large. They have a shielded spear. They've got just some standard axe infantry. and they've got several axe infantry choices. You know, some have Vanguard deploy, some are shielded, some have higher attack stats. So I mean, that's really all there is to it with these guys. They're this Primal Fury right here is pretty cool too. Any unit that has that just is that makes these guys immune to psychology. I wanted to say that no, it's the Centaurs that have Primal Fury. No, it's Rowdy that makes them immune to Vigor. My bad. So yeah, so these infantry, it gives the Beastmen a lot of cheap options. All these infantry from the Ungor Spear Herd all the way up to the Gore Herd, none of these guys are going to be any good against anything that's armored. The Bestigor are the only infantry that have any chance of doing any damage to another armored infantry unit. So the rest of these guys are essentially either meat shield, or they're to be used against tier 2 type infantry from other factions, with the Ungor Spear Herd, to me, specifically being a very helpful unit because it is so cheap and has an anti-large bonus. And that's kind of where their infantry sits. So they're going to typically underperform almost any other faction in a straight-up infantry fight. But to be honest, the Beastmen aren't frequently going to be trying to take a straight-up infantry fight. Now, let's talk about missiles. It's pretty straightforward. Ungor Raiders. These guys, for their price, pretty decent unit. They're not great for their... Well, I say that. They're not great for their price in terms of damage performance or anything else, but you need this option with the Beastmen. This is kind of like one of your insurance policies against like flying units just wrecking you, or dwarfs being able to gyro spam the crap out of you. One major point of weakness for the Beastmen is that all the other factions, all of them, have potentially better flying armies, in my opinion, because you can really only bring one flyer as the Beastmen, and that would be if you bring a Lore of Wild. Now, you could bring more than one Brave Shaman of Beast, sorry, not Wild, and you could have more than one Manticore, but you can't just buy them like Chaos. Dwarfs have gyrocopters. Greenskins, yeah, okay, they're probably pretty limited too, but you do have access to a Wyvern, which is going to be better than a Manticore. More expensive, but better, and it's going to be ridden by like Azag or a War Boss, who again will make it more effective than just a straight Feral Manticore. So I would say that every faction has better air power than Beastmen, and air power is a big deal in the current state of the game because really strong air power makes a faction easier to use. So anyway, we'll talk more about how they can potentially make up for that. But yeah, that's going to be one of the big weaknesses of the Beastmen. So low armor, low air power. What do they have available as tools? Well, in terms of lores of magic, they have the Lore of Death, the Lore of Beast, and the Lore of Wild. So what does that really mean? Well, Lore of Death could be really helpful for them in a realm of ethereal dwarf lords. Lore of Death is going to really be the Beastmen's only good, solid counter to ethereal Thanes, which could otherwise be a huge pain in the butt for the Beastmen because I don't believe any of their other units have magical attacks. So Lore of Death with the Spirit Leech could be pretty key. And then also there's some nice debuff spells under the Lore of Death, like the Aspect of Dread Knight. And there's another... Aspect of Dread Knight makes your units cause fear. And then they've got Doom and Darkness and Soul Blight, which are all pretty useful. The Lore of Death is going to be your best choice if you're taking an infantry build with the Beastmen, which is probably less often. And I say that because basically you bring a Fear and Terror build using the Aspect of Dread Knight. And you can bring that. So that's what I think the Death Shaman's good for. Ethereal heroes and then supporting an infantry build or a terror army. The Beast Shaman here has a couple of really handy things to offer. Probably one of the biggest ones is going to be this Flock of Doom. It's actually a really good spell, especially on the Overcast. If your opponent is foolish enough to blob up a ton of units within the radius of this, and then you get this off, you're going to cause 1,200 hit points of damage on every unit that's in that, unless they have some kind of magic resistance or something like that. So, I mean, it is extremely effective, Flock of Doom. And then you combine that with the fact that you can spawn a Manticore with one of these guys. They become a very useful unit. You can bring them, spawn the Manticore, and then use your extra magic to pull hit points off of enemy infantry blobs. So I would say that the Brave Shaman of Beast is going to be handy if you expect your opponent to be blobbing up. Do be careful. Remember that dwarfs have magic resistance. Probably not the best choice to use against them, even though they're frequently pretty blobbed up. The Brave Shaman of Wild, I would recommend that you normally just bring Malagor, and it would save you the cost of having to bring them, but what's available to them that makes them useful? Basically, mostly just Savage Dominion, which spawns a Cygor. Most of the other spells that come with this guy are pretty crap, to be honest. So I don't find these guys to be useful for anything except being able to give you a Cygor for a lot cheaper than you can buy a Cygor. So if you have enough wins in Magic, you can come in here and you can cost this out, and for $6.92, I get to have a Cygor as opposed to paying $1,600. That's the main use for the Bray Shaman of Wild. The Lore of Wild it was overpowered when it had Devolve, and it got kind of nerfed into an Oblivion when they got rid of Devolve, and the other spells weren't really all that good. So yeah, that's your Lores of Magic and kind of how they help support. In terms of Lords, you get good options. Again, Malagor is like if you want to spawn a Cygor for cheap, you pick Malagor. A lot of people would bring him in a configuration, let's see, probably like this. Probably wouldn't want to bring this, so you could. It helps buff the guys within 45 meters, so you could bring that. It's not a bad idea. I would say Primal Fury is probably a good thing. Bestial Surge. Yeah, I mean, whether or not you think the power reserves, probably so if you want to do more magic afterwards, but again, I don't like all of his magic. Arcane Conduit you could do optional, so you can see that if you came in here and let's say you got rid of the ones that improve your power reserves and stuff like that because you weren't all that worried, you have this option too, but that's only 33, so I'd say keep it. You can get Malagor for pretty cheap, and he's just going to spawn a Cygor. That's the whole purpose, and then he can support your troops for the rest of the fight. So that's going to be what Malagor's for. He's just there to get you a Cygor. Cygors are going to be good against Dwarfs. Unless the Dwarfs bring cannons, then it can get tricky. But yeah, they're going to be good against Dwarfs or other factions that are going to go infantry heavy. You mostly want to use a Cygor on a wide open map. You don't want a lot of cover for them to protect themselves. Now Khazrak is pretty good against infantry blobs. He's a lord that I find to be pretty useful if you're thinking you're going to get them into a big infantry pileup to let them do some damage. If you are, I suggest bringing the Scourge. I would suggest never putting any of the Beastmen units in the Razorgore Chariot. I find it to be quite worthless and just really not a good choice. So avoid the Razorgore Chariot. And then Scourge, like I said, this can help you do a lot of damage whenever you get into the big infantry pileups. In terms of his abilities down here are good. I would pretty much just keep those. So that's Khazrak, kind of a more heavy-hitting lord, and if you want just the cheaper version, that's what the Beastlord is. He's like Khazrak Light. You can see the items there. Unfortunately, no healing potion for him, which does leave him a little bit weak. But if you bring this Horn of the Beast, this affects all allies in range. It gives them all Frenzy. That's a big deal. That's a 45-meter radius, so potentially if you're wanting to do that rush where you use the fear tactics to try and break an enemy army, this might be a good lord to bring for that. Stick him in the middle of all that infantry, aspect of Dread Knight from the Bray Shaman of Death, and then just plow right through your enemies because the ones within 45 meters now get Frenzy. So, pretty cool deal. Anyway, there's your lords. Let's keep talking through the rest of these units. We talked about Centigors previously. Centigors, these ones are pretty much pointless unless you're playing campaign and you need a mop-up unit. Centigors with throwing axes, again, also useless because they don't have fire whilst moving. Do not use these guys. They're not worth it. They're just not. Centigors with great weapons. Now this unit, at first I overwrote this unit. This is a very useful unit for the Beastmen. If a flying lord is stupid enough to charge down in the presence of these guys, they can pin him down. They are very fast. They do a lot of armor-piercing damage. And they're even pretty decent in a head-up melee fight against other cavalry, though you do want to support them for the most part. But these guys will beat Empire Knights. They will beat a greatsword head-on. These guys are a really, really handy unit. Their speed to run down enemy routing units, and their effectiveness at taking on armored infantry, flying lords, or any of that other stuff, they are a very handy unit for the Beastmen, so definitely keep an eye on them. Razorgore chariots are worthless because chariots in this game just don't do much. Don't waste your time. As we come down here, Warhounds are now cheaper. These are a good addition to a fear and terror army, as these can run down all the fleeing units so that they don't come back to the fight. That would be pretty much the only use that I see for Chaos Warhounds. The poison variety are just a more expensive version. Yes, they have poison. Could be a good way to support your Centigors with great weapons, but they are expensive. Razorgore Herd, again, don't find these guys to be very often worth it. Though they're better than a chariot, they still struggle. They're not a great unit. They're pretty slow. I haven't had great luck with them. I'm not going to write them off yet. I haven't been real convinced of their worth just yet. Chaos Spawn. Now, you do have the great option here in this unit. It causes poison. It's really good against like a big blob of infantry, like armored infantry and stuff. It's unbreakable, which means that you can send it in first in a fight, and it can tank out a lot of damage for other units. So definitely a useful unit for the Beastmen. Minotaurs of all varieties are quite decent. Regular Minotaurs are good if you don't expect to go up against any large adversaries, and you're going to be taking out a lot of infantry. Minotaurs with shields are going to be good if you need your Minotaurs to be a little bit more survivable to missiles. Minotaurs with great weapons are going to be your pick when you need an anti-large bonus along with the armor piercing. If these guys get in groups, they can do a lot of damage to anti-large cavalry, and they are really good against big monsters and other stuff like that, but they are quite expensive, and they are still pretty vulnerable to skirmish fire at only 35 armor, so do be aware of their weaknesses. The Giant, like any Giant with other factions, is a great pick. If you tank up on enough of these guys, sometimes like the 3 Giant builds and stuff like that, they can be pretty devastating against opponents who aren't expecting it. Giant is going to be a handy unit against any faction who's bad at skirmishing, like the Vampires, as a good example. So Giants are going to be good in that case. Cygor, it's probably rare you're going to buy one of these guys. You're more likely to spawn them. But again, a good anti-infantry artillery, and use them on open maps where you have plenty of time to fire and plenty of room to protect them. These guys are going to die quickly to cannons, both from the Dwarfs and the Empire, so be aware of that, and the cannons have better range too, or at least equal range. So just watch out for that. Otherwise, good against infantry, especially in blobs. Alright, that's pretty much it. That's the Beastmen. So that's what I think of them, that's what I think of their units, that's what I think of their position in the game. They didn't change much in this patch. Let's have a little fun. Let's put together a Beastmen build or two. So I'm going to put together a Fear Rush. We're going to use this Beastlord. I'm going to throw on his Frenzy thing here. Always want a couple of Gorbals. And with Gorbal, I mean, you can kind of min-max some of this. I do want him to be immune to Psychology. The Frenzy thing's handy. The Speed and Vigor can also be handy. I'm just going to keep all these abilities on Gorbal. Definitely going to give him a Foolhardiness and a Potion of Strength. Alright, so we got our Gorbals. I need a Brave Shaman of Death. We're going to come in here and try and right-size his abilities. Improved casting and or power and recharge rate is probably good. Primal Fury... how much does it cost? 30. Yeah, okay, just keep it. Arcane Conduit. Depends on whether or not I think I'm going to get to use it. Could be handy with the Fear Rush, because you might find yourself casting a couple of times. We're going to leave Aspect of Dread Knight, Spirit Leech, Doom and Darkness, and then Soul Blight is only 8 leadership, but it does a lot of damage to everything else, so that's a good question. That one's 8 magic, that one's 9. But that's a bigger leadership debuff. I would just get rid of the Purple Sun of Zerus and the Fate of Buna. You probably won't need those two. And if you needed to drop another spell, I'd probably drop Soul Blight and go with Doom and Darkness just because it hits bigger. But if you want to use less magic, you could go the other way around. That one's 143 and that one's 130. They're about the same. So the cheapest you can probably get this guy to be effective is the 1002, or it'll be 1132 if you go down that route. So let's get our Rush army together. Probably 3 to 4 Bestigor will do the job. Let's go with 3 this time, just to save a little bit of money. And then I like putting some Ungorherd in here. You can go with the Gorherd with shields. You can see they do have better stats pretty much across the board for 60 more. And since we didn't get the extra Bestigor, we could. But, you know, again, this is up to you. I like to get 4 of these guys, and then I like to put a Spear with both of them to help out with protection. And you probably want a couple of Chaos Warhounds to run down the routing units that we mentioned, and we can afford another Spearman there. The other consideration to take in for this army is that you may want to get some anti-air protection in the form of an Archer. So we could consider that. Like if you cut a Bestigor and that Spearman, because you really want to try and hit a pocket with the Fear army to take them out. You could do something like 1 Warhound to run down routing units, and then you could grab yourself a couple of these bows, and then you could get yourself maybe some more Bestigor. Oof, we're so close there. We could just get a couple more of these guys and then run some upgrades, or you could get the Ungor with shields or something. But that's one example. You can get a little extra protection for your army and stuff here too. So, or you could go with 1 Gorbal too. But I get pretty scared to go with less than 2 Gorbals. You could go with the 1 Gorbal if you wanted to. Again, this is going to leave you more vulnerable if the enemy has more like anti-Lord or Lord killing capability. But you know, a unit like this, Centaurs with great weapons, would be a great defense against that type of thing. Plus, it can also run down routing units. So this is another potential way that you could handle that build. In fact, let's save this one. So we're going to call this one Fear Rush. It's not a super strong infantry corps here at all. Not at all. The Bestigor, though, is where I'm going to focus in on the fear effects, and then the flanks just need to hold. Centigors help protect you from flying units. The Chaos Warhounds chase down routing units, and then you need to use Gorbel to protect the Beastlord and whatever else it is that you need to do. And then you have your 2 archers to help pick an enemy skirmisher. So we saved this one. Did I save this one? Well, if I didn't, Bestigor, Death, Beastmen. Let's save this one as a different one. Let's call this one 2. And let's load an army setup. What was this one? 4 Bestigor. I've got Khazrak there. These 2 guys, we could swap out Khazrak for the standard lord, I think. Bring that. We save a little bit of money there. Not a ton. Drop a Bestigor. Maybe go with like 1 Centigor with Great Weapon, and that would be another version of it here. And we could afford several Warherds with shields once we make that change. There we go. So you could do something like this too, and if I save this army setup, we'll save this one as the original there too. Yep. All right, there we go. So we got a couple of fear rushes, and that's honestly kind of. I mean, so these fear rushes again, these are going to be better against a faction that's going to be infantry heavy. Let's think. Fear rush not going to be good against the vampires, by the way. Let's think of a build that we can potentially use against vampires or dwarfs or something like that. Against vampires, probably just going to go with this guy again. And if I want to outlast vampires, I'm going to need a couple of Gorbels. Just tank this stuff up. Probably wouldn't hurt to bring a Bray Shaman of Beast. And if we look at his abilities, increase to power reserves. How much does that cost? 184. Let's ditch that. And we're going to bring Doomflock and Transformation of Kedon. And so we can use this guy to some pretty good effect there. So making him as cheap as possible. Got that main set up. If we were going to go against vampires, I'd probably want a little bit of anti-armor here with some Bestigor. Probably wouldn't hurt to have some Centigors with great weapons. And we're going to need some killing power. We have the Manticore that can get up in the air. We've got our Bestigor, which should be providing some hitting power. And it probably wouldn't hurt to have a couple of archers. If we could save like 25 gold on something, which we could just get rid of one of these and we can grab another spearman. So maybe something like this. I got a little bit of spears to help protect against blood knights. Some Centigors to get around the battlefield a little more quickly. A couple bows to help out against crypt horrors. Some armored infantry to do the fighting in the center. A couple Gorbels to deal with enemies, and then a Beastlord to help give frenzy. These guys don't have frenzy. Yeah, so you can add it to them. So let's save this one. Call this army setup. I don't know if it's anti-vampire, but we'll call it that. Yeah, we'll call it infantry. And then there's other options. You can go with cheaper options. Bray Shaman and Beast. If we go cut these guys out, let's go with Malagor. Spells, cut this stuff down. Items. Yeah, we'll give him that just in case we need it in the end. Alright, so we got Malagor. That saves us a little bit of money not having a Lord and the Shaman. We got a few Bestigor, which is probably a good idea. Probably don't need these guys. And then let's cut these guys loose and go with a couple of Chaos Spawn and a couple of Minotaurs with great weapons. Gonna have to make some further adjustments. It's gonna make our army pretty small. Down to 49 is the only difference we gotta make, so let's see what else we can cut here. -4 leadership. Ooh, it's so close, but it doesn't cost enough. Map wide while casting? Nah, we can live. Alright, so there we go. So this army's now there, and we can say, save this army. Say Beastmen. Mino Great Weapon. Yeah, instead of saying Beastmen, we could say Malagor to be Alright, so we got a couple armies built. Let's hope that one of them will work. Let's go into a quick battle and give one a shot. I may not win, but, you know, hey, it is what it is. I actually don't have a very good win rate with the Beastmen. A lot of people have pretty good success with the Beastmen, but I really don't do all that well with them. I don't think that I've really quite honed in on what their best uses in the heat of battle are, and I may not always pick the best counter or whatever it is. So I don't know. I haven't had the best success with them, but I've seen plenty of people have success with them to the point where it doesn't make me question whether or not they can be used. Rick Sanchez, huh? Let's see how this guy's doing. Let's see what army he comes up with. He's gonna go vampires. So let's think about what I have to offer up against him. So we don't want to do my death shaman, whatever it is. We could do this. Oh, he's going dwarfs now. And dwarfs probably don't want to do... I'm thinking actually this other build may be okay against the dwarfs, depending on what he brings. If he brings a cannon, we'd certainly be in trouble. Would the fear army work versus the dwarves? I want to say one of their characters can help people be immune to psychology, but the dwarfs are bound to be kind of bunched up, and the fear build might be a good way to go. But they also have really high leadership. Longbeards are immune to psychology. And I want to say Thorgrim stuff. Is it Thorgrim who can make other units around him immune to psychology? I can't remember at the moment. Let's try it, and let's just see if it works. And this will give us a test to just put it to work. I don't think that it's going to be the best thing. My only other option is to go with the Malagor deal. This one comes pretty light on infantry, but we get a lot of monsters. The dwarfs can help deal with monsters. This would also give us a Cygor. Do I want to go with this one? The two... This one might be more interesting. Let's try this one. I don't think the Fear Rush is going to work. So I'm going to say, good luck, have fun. Give my opponent just a moment. This map ought to give me decent cover, actually, from cannons, because it looks like it's got some terrain and some trees. But the terrain and trees, I mean, the trees won't slow down Chaos Spawn, but it will the Minotaurs with great weapons. But see, this build has the Cygor built into it. I don't know, we'll make it work. Let's just give it a shot. All the trees are definitely going to hamper the Cygor's potential. Let's just give it a shot. I thought he was ready. Did he not ready up? I readied up? Did he? I don't know. I'll be able to tell when we watch the video. My bad if I readied up and he wasn't ready. Wasn't really intended to do that, because people do it to me a lot, but I could have sworn he was ready. Alright, he's ready. We're good. Sorry, Rick Sanchez. Or maybe I'm not sorry. I don't know. Lore of Vampires has Nagashism. Is that where you get like a nasty Nagash rash? Ooh, that was lame. The Rash of Nagash? There we go, that was a little bit better. I don't even want to know what the Rash of Nagash is or how it's caused, but I'm assuming it's whenever you spend some time in a vampire brothel. Whoa, the bad jokes just keep on coming. Keep on coming. Yeah, this is going to make the Cygor a little bit more difficult to use effectively. But it'll give our infantry good cover in these woods. Oh, son of a stupid. Crap. This doesn't have any archers. If he brings gyrocopters, I'm boned. Crap. I didn't think of that. I don't have a manticore either. Oh, so I have no protection against gyrocopters. We're just going to sit here and cross our fingers. Please no gyrocopters. And also please load faster. I'm impatient. Gosh, the no gyrocopters. What was I thinking? You all have to tell me in the comments too what other armies you had in mind. I'm sure you will anyway, but I'll say it here while I'm waiting on this to load anyway. If you have other Beastmen army compositions you like, so people saw me build a couple here. I don't even know if they're any good, but if you have good Beastmen army compositions and what you like them for, feel free to leave it in the chat, or don't leave it if you want to keep your secret safe. Malagor up in there. Gonna position those guys right there. I'm gonna hard group these guys. Oh, please no gyrocopters. Please no gyrocopters. Please no gyrocopters. It's gonna take me a while to be able to spawn my Cygor. I'm just kind of hiding these guys back here behind the hill momentarily. Dang it. Very first thing I see up here. Well, it's a gyro bomber. Still not good, because he's going to be able to do a lot of work. A flame cannon? Really? Okay, well that gives me some hope. That means that his infantry has been made significantly cheaper. I'm going to move my Gorbul units through these forests to give it a little bit of cover from the gyrocopter. We definitely don't want to walk straight into that flame cannon. That ain't going to go well. You can't see any of my units. So yeah, I can. See these guys here. Malagor's still hidden, but the others aren't. That's interesting. Malagor's no longer hidden. I wonder if he thought he could hide the gyrocopter, but that doesn't exactly work. I can see you. Sneaky, sneaky Rick Sanchez. I'm gonna actually run these guys down this route. Where's get this main group, pull up here. I'm gonna have to take my time and kind of work to the flanks a little. Like I said, walking straight into this flame cannon would be suicidally stupid, because this thing is quite good, and he's got it guarded by a Quarler. I can see a Slayer back here. That's a bit of a problem, because I have low armor monsters, and Slayers are pretty good against such. We don't have to worry about cavalry, so let's take group 3. And let's split it off. And then let's actually spread it up a little bit further. So I don't have to worry about the dwarfs just like swinging straight out at me. So ungroup this. Malagor, you go right here in the center. Where's the range on that cannon? Flame cannon has such crappy range. Looks like the Quarlers have like the same range. If the flame cannon had a good range, man, that would be a frightening deal. Okay, we're gonna have to get away from this gyro bomber. Okay, where's my other spear unit? Let's send the spear unit out here, see if we can draw the attention. Well, whatever. I'm just gonna have to ignore the gyro bomber a little bit, because I got to get to the flanks with these monster groups, I think, to have any chance of winning. Ooh, actually, what am I doing? Why am I don't need to rush just yet. I don't need to rush just yet. Get back here. Get back here. Let's pull back here. I got an unplayed card here that I want to take advantage of. Might be able to force the dwarf to move. The trees are going to give him pretty significant cover. Let's get our guys back to cover, come to speak of it. What's the heck? Is there like a rock in the way over here? Yeah, there sure is. Let's bring these guys over here. Alright. Chuck a rock at these Quarlers. Let's see if we can convince my opponent to move. He wants to stay up there on his little dwarf hill. Probably just going to hit a tree. No, I didn't. I just straight missed. I could throw it as a gyro bomber since it's sitting still. What do you think the chances are that we'd hit it? Let's find out. If he's not going to dodge or micromanage his unit, well, let's see if we can pop his gyro bomber with a rock. I don't know what kind of chances we have of actually succeeding at this. Oh, it hit a tree right in front of it. How annoying is that? Who would have known that a stringy old tree like that would stop a big giant magical rock? That's total war, people. Okay, he's moving now. I've got his attention, though. Alright, we're not going to hit him. That's not going to happen. Okay, we've got him moving. This is good. This is good. This is going to pull him away from the flame cannon. At least we got the attention of this guy. I sure don't want him bombing my guys to death, though. Ugh, yeah, we're going to miss that all day long, though. We're going to whiff those shots. Longbeards. Dwarf warriors. Let's target the slayers. We're going to stay spread out here. Let's run the spearman out over here. Kite back a little. Okay, he's going to attack me. Let's get this goop moving because he's going to try and bomb me. Move, 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 move. At least I thought he was going to try and bomb me. Okay, I saw a lord back there. Let's take this Gorble, disconnect him from the group. Wait a minute, I disconnected the wrong Gorble, whatever. There's a Thane there too. Okay, let's see if we can draw off the Thane. Let's take this Gorble, disconnect him also. Let's take these two units and swing down the hill as quick as we can. Okay, distract these guys, attack there. Go ahead and pull this in. Let's fall back a little bit here. Wow, he's actually got quite a few skirmish troops back here. Let's go get into him. Gorble. A little less worried about the flame cannon at the moment. Okay, Gorble. Let's get over here. Let's see if we can kill all the dwarf infantry and pressure the quarrelers. Try and stay away from the dwarf lords. His gyro bomber's not even active right now, so I'm getting lucky in that respect. We're mopping him up here at the bottom of the hill. Okay, let's keep pressure on these quarrelers. Let's chase this way with the chaos spawn, because we can just leave those guys engaged. And let's bring the Bestial herd up here. Okay, ignore those guys. We've got to get into his quarrelers. And I think that we've just caught him on a mistake here. Yeah, I don't think he's using his army real great right now. So it's working out to my advantage. He's got his units kind of discombobulated here. Okay, get these quarrelers. Okay, we're gonna get a little bit outflanked there, so let's bring one monster unit to help out up here, and let's bring these other ones over this way. Yeah, I don't think my opponent's used his army real well right here. Let's attack the Lord. Cygor's doing good helping out those cheap spears. Let's get over here and countercharge these dwarf warriors which have come back. Keep going at it over here. Got reinforcements headed in up there. Reinforcements headed under center. These dwarf warriors should get wrecked. Cygor's doing a good job. Gorbul's working his magic here. Lord's got Bestigor and Gorbul to deal with, so let's take these faster units and run down some of the routing, and let's just pass some extra help in here to Gorbul with these cheap actions. Yeah, let's do that. Let's take the Chaos Spawn because they're unbreakable. We'll head up this way. Losing my Bestigor over here. We're losing this fight in general, actually. I don't know why I even brought Arcane Conduit with one spell, people. There's another what was Air thinking moment. There's plenty of those. Got his Thane. Chase these guys down. Head back for Ungrim. Got the job done here. This gyro bomber, I don't even know if he's gotten his bombs off. So like I said, my opponent making some weird moves with this army. Not very ideal moves. Malagor's fighting for his life over here, so let's give him a little help. Let's act like I care about his existence. Ooh, those bombs. He misdropped them. Wow, 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 wow. Okay, let's unblob here. Let's unblob the infantry, because he's bombing away. I don't mind leaving my lords in there, but we can't have our infantry getting too wrecked from the gyro bomber. So we're going to unblob. Flame cannon's actually opening fire on me. Let's get this cheap spearman. Start running down some of these quarrelers. Run for the flame cannon, which is now routing to... Okay, we got him. Got him right where we want him. So, spreading out there, we were able to get advantageous engagements right where we needed them. His gyro bomber was a mispick. I think a gyrocopter with brimstone gun would have served a lot more purpose versus beastmen, because beastmen don't usually blob up into an infantry fight, because their infantry is not all that good. But here we had a pretty good time. We got the engagements we needed. This one Minotaur up here did get a little bit thrashed, probably from the Slayers, actually, come to think of. There's two of them, so I must have misidentified one Slayer somewhere. But the Chaos Spawn performing wonderfully here versus the Dwarfs, as expected. This Bestial herd right here did fantastic. Malagor was good supporting infantry, because the dwarf infantry ended up in like these one-on-one engagements where even a weak wizard like Malagor can do a lot of damage. So that worked out good for me. I wouldn't say that my opponent there was probably playing with, and not to be mean to him, he probably wasn't playing with a huge skill level there. The flame cannon's a mispick versus the beastmen. Longbeard's not so bad, because you could survive a fear or terror rush. Even Ungrim can be a decent pick, I suppose. I would probably go with a Thorgrim build, though, where Thorgrim gets to buff up all those units. Anyway, it's been a long video, but hopefully it's been an informative video. We've talked about Beastmen. This is where I'm going to leave off with them. And go look at my Twitter page over the next few days, and we'll vote on who the next faction is that we're going to focus on. Hope to hear from you. And you can leave your thoughts in the comments here, too, about what faction you want me to look at next. HeirofCarthage, signing out. I will see you soon.